Introduction and maybe which delegation are you representing?
Good morning to the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Chair and the Co-Chair. My name is Honorable Zama Skwebela. I'm representing South Africa from the Free State Legislature. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and greetings to you, Chair, and the Co-Chair. Greetings to the Speaker of the National Assembly. I am Sizopila Mkhize, representing South Africa from the KwaZulu-Natal Legislature.
Greetings, Speaker, and greetings, Co-Chair. My name is Mikateko Mahlaule. I'm a Member of Parliament in the National Assembly of South Africa. I am a South African.
Greetings, Chair, Co-Chair, Speaker of the National Assembly. My name is Honorable Khalalelo Makokoa. I'm representing South Africa from the Northwest Provincial Legislature.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, guests. My name is Donovan De Hayes. I'm representing South Africa from the Northern Cape Provincial Legislature.
Good morning, Speaker, Chair and Co-Chair, Honourable Members. My name is Dalen Mitchell, and I'm the Speaker of the Western Cape Provincial Legislature, and I represent South Africa.
Good morning, colleagues, Honourable Speaker and our other distinguished guests. My name is Fasiha Hassan. I'm also a member of the National Assembly of the South African Parliament, also a part of the delegation of South Africa. Thank you.
Good morning, Speaker, representative from the Inter-Parliamentary Union, co-chairs, honourable members. My name is Baxolile Nodata. I'm a member of Parliament in the National Assembly, also representing the delegation from South Africa. Thanks.
Good morning, Speaker and Honourable Chair. My name is Balungile Sapo. I am representing South Africa. I'm the member of the National Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Speaker, honourable delegates. My name is Andisiwe Kumbaka. I'm a member of the South African delegation in the National Assembly. Thank you.
Доброе утро, дорогие друзья, уважаемый президиум. Меня зовут Александр Трембицкий, я представляю Российскую Федерацию.
Good morning all, Honorable Chair and dear colleagues. Selman Özboyacı from Turkey. I'm an MP in Turkey and I'm representing Turkey.
Good morning, all. I am Kurtuluş Aykan from the Turkish Embassy in Pretoria.
Good morning, all. I'm Ahmet Semihpur from Grand National Assembly of Turkey.
Hello, good morning to everyone. My name is Natalia Mustakova, and I am a senior counsel of the Russian Embassy in Pretoria, head of G20 unit. Thank you.
Honourable Speaker, Chair, Co-Chair, honourable members, my name is Pekka Hakala. I'm from the European Union Parliament. I'm a staff member. Unfortunately, no member from the European Parliament could attend this session, but we are very keen on observing it and wish all the best to the proceedings.
A nice global representation of members of parliament and members of various legislatures across the globe. We might not have a representation from the European Union, but we do have a representation across the globe, which is wonderful. From the Inter-Parliamentary Union, if you may introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dan Carden. I'm a UK Member of Parliament and the former President of Young MPs at the IPU and currently a member of the Bureau of Young MPs at the IPU.
Thank you for that introduction. Now I will have my co-chair. I think they've sorted out the issue of interpretation at the back. My co-chair, Honourable Smaili, you may take the floor.
Good morning. أنا السيد إسماعيل سليمان نائب رئيس المجلس الشعبي الوطني بدولة الجزائر. سيداتي والسادتي الكرام أصحاب المعالي زملائي النواب الشباب من مختلف الدول وضيوفنا الكرام، يشرفني بصفة رئيس هذه الجلسة أن أرحب بكم جميعا في هذا اللقاء الهام الذي يندرج ضمن فعاليات اجتماع البرلمانيين الشباب لمجموعة 20 والمنعقد لأول مرة على أرض إفريقية تحت شعار البرلمانيون الشباب كمحركين للتضامن العالمي والمساواة والاستدامة. كما يسعدني أن أتقاسم رئاسة هذه الجلسة مع زميلتي النائبة المحترمة السيدة كوبي من الجمعية الوطنية لجنوب إفريقيا، وأغتنم هذه المناسبة لأتوجه بخالص الشكر والامتنان إلى جمهورية جنوب إفريقيا على استضافتها الكريمة وحسن تنظيمها لهذه الفعالية الهامة. إن اجتماعنا اليوم يعكس التزامنا المشترك بإعلاء صوت الشباب في صنع القرار، وهذا ما نحرص عليه جميعا في برلماناتنا الوطنية. ودون إطالة يسعدني أن أحيل الكلمة إلى زميلتي الرئيسة المشاركة لهذه الجلسة السيدة كوبي لتعريف بالجميع المتدخلين.
Thank you for that introduction. I do hope that some of you did get the interpretation. It is on channel 3, that is Arabic, and also 1. Now it's on 1. That's where English is. Thank you so much, Mr. Smiley, for that introduction. Really, it was very gracious of you to say that of us. Thank you. Now I'm going to introduce the Honourable Speaker of the National Assembly of the South African Parliament, Ms. Togodidiza.
Co-chairs, Honourable Kobe of South Africa and Honourable Silmani of Algeria, member of the IPU Young Parliamentary Forum, Mr. Den Carden, representative of the SAD Youth Parliament, Honourable Manong, I see she's not here yet, chairperson of the Y20 South Africa, Mr. Mathala, all young parliamentarians who are here from various member states, as well as the multilateral organizations who are part of the G20. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Actually, looking at all of you, I also feel young. I was once in those seats, but I graduated, so there was a point at which I was an ancestor of the youth, you know. So bridging the gap between young and old, and then somewhere I had to mature and be old. And I still envy the category of young people because of its vibrancy and also bringing new ideas to the fore. And I'm sure that's what you'll do during this session. Honourable members and distinguished guests, it is my greatest pleasure to welcome you to South Africa. Like many countries, South Africa offers different scenery, history, diverse cultures, and its unique beauty. Each year in September, we celebrate our cultural diversity, embracing our common values which are enshrined in our Constitution. It is my hope that your limited stay and the friendships you would have made during this session will be an incentive for you to visit our country again. I'm excited. Speaking to Carden, he already said, I've decided I'm going to add one more day in Cape Town. So, with Carden having led the way, I'm sure some of you are going to say, I'll spend a day in the Free State or another day in KwaZulu-Natal. As one of the youngest nations, we are still rebuilding our communities from a past that had divided us. I'm sure when you landed in Cape Town, you would already have seen the schism in our country. On one side, the much acclaimed development in our country, but on the other side, what you would call representing one of the underdevelopment communities. But it is our commitment through our Constitution that we will ensure that we bridge that divide. Hence, I'm saying we're still a building nation. We, as a member of the G20, and as its current chair, we chose to bring in the table issues of solidarity, equality, sustainability to the fore, as we believe that we cannot reflect on the global economy without acknowledging the inequality that still exists in our world. We also appreciate how solidarity can help to foster cooperation for the greater good. Our very economies depend on each other. We trade as nations because we need what others produce that we are not able to because of our different ecological environments. To build sustainable economies also calls us to appreciate the need for protecting our infinite resource, the environment. In this august house are young parliamentarians from varied nations with a common goal of representing hopes and aspirations of young people. This forum is a platform that offers young parliamentarians an opportunity to table and debate political, social, and economic issues that impact the lives of young people in the world. It is a platform to formulate solutions that can positively impact the lives of all young people. It is for these reasons that we have strategically placed this session prior to the Speakers Summit to ensure that its agreed outcomes forms part of the joint outcome statement of the Speakers Summit and make a contribution towards the leaders' meeting that will be in November. Co-chairs, in the world characterized by inequality, persistently high levels of poverty and unemployment, and growing global tensions and trade protectionism, solidarity and international cooperation becomes a crucial instrument to attain global peace and sustainability. Young people are often the most affected by the choices and actions of today, and therefore taking decisions without young people's voices and involvement is no more ideal. Young people are a powerhouse in exploring solutions to problems of the modern world simply because they bring new perspectives, new energy, inventive ideas, and fresh perspectives, not only to the world, but also in our legislatures. Youth technological and entrepreneurial activism give them a competitive edge to navigate the complexity of today's world, thus helping us all to derive original solutions needed in our world today. Co-chairs, honorable members, as we promote world societies that are founded on democratic value and respect for human rights for all, we must be conscious that many challenges remain despite the progress that we have made. Some of these challenges include limited inclusion of young peoples in parliaments, high levels of youth unemployment, slow or stagnating economies, weakening multilateralism, rising global hunger, and intensifying geopolitical challenges coupled with growing nationalism sentiments. It is the youth who must inherit this world economy that is yet to fully recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. A world characterized by high cost of living, which is compounded by rising risks of climate change. Honorable members, distinguished guests, the challenge of rising unemployment among young people is a growing concern, not only in our country or continent, but globally. With young people accounting 1/4 of the world's population, they are a dominant force and resource that is idling in today's economic activity, not because of their choice, but because of what choices and decisions that might have been made before them. A relatively large share of young people are neither working nor economically active in emerging and underdeveloping countries, underpinned by issues such as constrained government fiscus, skills mismatch to modern digital economy, and the ripple effect of COVID-19 pandemic. Several UN World Youth reports have pronounced on the challenges faced by young people at the workplace, such as the Youth Perspectives on the Pursuit of Decent Work in Changing Times, published in 2011, and other later reports. As parliamentarians, we must reflect on how countries individually and collectively have progressed on measures resolving youth unemployment using the oversight mechanism available to world parliaments. Today in the world, conflict and instability is estimated to affect more than 400 million young people. This will place young people in fragile conditions such as extreme poverty and expose them to gender abuse, human trafficking, and others will be turned to child soldiers. In 2024, the Global Peace Index showed that peacefulness in the world has reached its lowest level. Conflict perpetuates the migration problem, which exerts pressure on already fiscus-constrained countries. This means that a large number of young people are unintendedly deprived of opportunities to acquire quality education, health and entrepreneurial skills to engage in a global economy. Co-chairs, as young parliamentarians in the world, you have an obligation to influence parliaments to develop laws that are sensible and humanly acceptable to resolve the global migration problem, among others. Due to world instabilities, young people encounter economic and social insecurities that compels them to seek better life opportunities elsewhere. And we all know that some of those young people end up in the seas as casualties as they try to look for greener pastures elsewhere. Estimate shows that half of youth aged between 18 and 23 in Africa, Middle East, and in developing countries are likely to consider emigrating if their respective governments do nothing to improve the quality of life. Co-chairpersons, honorable members, creating legislations and conditions that will inspire hope and bring stability in the world is a collective responsibility of all countries. Hence, promoting solidarity is an important aspect of achieving our sustainable development goals. A collective action is equally important to mitigate the effects of climate change in the world, especially the poor and the developing countries that have weak coping mechanisms. Even though youth and children have contributed the least to global climate change, they are the ones to carry the highest cost of climate crisis and suffer the consequences of global warming. In Southern Africa, the frequent occurrence of drought and storm rains events have had devastating impacts on agriculture and infrastructure, regressing developmental progress in countries like South Africa, Namibia, Zambia, and Mozambique. Research on climate change effects suggests that children born in recent years would face 7 times more scorching heat waves than their grandparents. Honourable members, another critical area to consider is the active and meaningful participation of young people in parliaments across the world. The IPU reported that 2.8% of world's parliamentarians are younger than 30 years of age. Moreover, 73% of world's parliament upper houses do not have parliamentarians younger than 30 years of age, implying the voices of young people is abjectly represented in parliaments. South Africa has recognized the value of young people as agents of social change in societies. Hence, the inclusion of youth in both houses of South Africa's parliament is a non-negotiable democratic goal. I must say that while we do not have a quota system, but I think encouragement to different political parties to bring in young people in parliament has actually assisted. But I must also say it is because of youth activism on their own that have made expression for this to happen. Otherwise, if it was left to the adults, I'm not sure whether we would have reached even the levels that we have reached smaller as it is, but I think we owe it to the activism of young people that we have a youth voice in both our parliaments as well as our legislatures. Co-chairs and honorable members, history has taught us that youth is sacrosanct ingredient in formulating sustainable solutions in world challenges. Through a transformative power of technology and artificial intelligence, young people are able to put their skills, energy, and talents to drive real change in the world. I want to encourage each of you that in your deliberations, you must reflect on how the world can better employ the sheer power of young people to build the world we all want. This means that debate and counter statements must unpack issues and propose solutions that will improve youth inclusion in lawmaking and in global businesses. They must identify incentives to empower youth to maximize opportunity brought by the artificial intelligence, obviously looking also at its regulation so that it serves better our country. It is also important to look at how we look at local responses and enhance values of natural endowments in each country. Co-chairpersons, honorable members, I encourage you to explore the types of investments required in education, social and economic sectors to advance global cooperation and youth entrepreneurship. Recent global leanings have shown that digital transformation underpinned by property rights and open trade policies have the potential to reverse the trend of unemployment and stagnant economies. Education is a formidable force to stimulate global transformation. We must find innovative ways to reorient our educational systems with the objective of instilling modern technology, competencies, and skills required to nurture well-core values that promote solidarity and equality. Technology and innovation is another enabler that holds great promise to addressing the youth, employment, and influence legislatures in developing and developed countries. Access to accurate information can bridge the digital divide. However, technology advancement can also aid misinformation when care is not exercised, as seen in the case of South Africa relating to recently passed laws on land and transforming its economy. Co-chairperson and honorable members, as I conclude, let me remind you that almost 90% of the world's youth is living in developing countries. This means that the Global South has an equal bigger role to play in shaping the world as industrialized countries. Therefore, our actions and decisions today must ensure that young people in the Global South gain a meaningful access to economic opportunities, to global economy, development, and stable society. Young people are the backbone of world societies, a primary human resource for development, and agents of social change and economic prosperity. If we accept this notion, we must therefore ensure that young people's participation goes beyond just consultations in global platforms like P20 Young Parliamentary Forums. Sufficient resources must be made available, and laws must be intentionally designed to implement measures that would include and truly actioned the voices and needs of young people in our countries and globally. I thank you.
أنا جد سعيد أولا أنني كل مرة أتحدث ترفعون السماعات هذه للمرح. شكرا جزيلا لصاحبة المعالي على هذه الكلمة الهامة والملهمة. والآن ندعو السيد دان كاردن عضو مكتب منتدى البرلمانيين الشباب بالاتحاد البرلمان الدولي لتقديم كلمته، فليتفضل مشكور.
Madam Speaker, co-chairs, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow honourable young parliamentarians. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honour to follow you and to be sat with you, Madam Speaker. And may I start by thanking the Parliament of South Africa for hosting this event and for organising this first ever P20 meeting of young parliamentarians. I am a rather ageing young parliamentarian. I'm 38 years of age and I was President of Young Parliamentarians until earlier this year. And during my time as President of Young Parliamentarians at the IPU, I lowered the age to be considered a young parliamentarian to under the age of 40. So I'm rapidly approaching the end of my time. But it's been a privilege to hold this position and to really support and lead change for young parliamentarians at the IPU. To set the scene, let me begin by sharing some of the alarming statistics that Madam Speaker touched on as well. Because we launched these 2 weeks ago at our global conference of young parliamentarians in Peru. And they are that just 2.8% of the world's MPs are under the age of 30. That's 2.8%. This proportion had been growing, but it's been growing since 2014, but it's been at a standstill since 2023. And young women are especially excluded, with just 1.2% of MPs being women under the age of 30. And this proportion has actually declined since 2023. And finally, that 37% of parliamentary chambers, just over 1/3 of parliamentary chambers, have no MPs under the age of 30. I think we all want parliaments to reflect the societies that they represent. However, when it comes to youth, we are very far from accomplishing this goal. And when half of the world's population is under the age of 30, but fewer than 3% of MPs are, it's no longer just a statistic. It really is a democratic emergency. Youth inclusion is needed for a just and representative society. But beyond being the right thing to achieve, it's also surely the smart thing. The reason is simple. We meet at a time when the global community is tackling unprecedented challenges. From climate change to technological disruption, we need all hands on deck. And the fresh and innovative ideas brought by youth are one of the greatest resources to solve these global problems. It is this vision for a more inclusive Parliament that propelled the IPU's own youth movement. It began in 2010, when members of Parliament adopted a groundbreaking resolution on youth participation in the democratic process. And it came at a time, back in 2010, when the world's youth were demanding change. Their voices had been at the margins, and the complaints that young people were being left unheard and unrepresented was ringing out from continent to continent around the world. The resolution at the IPU was a rallying call for change and a roadmap on how to achieve it. It called on parliaments and other stakeholders to enhance the number and influence of young people's participation within parliaments, and a new era of international cooperation to support this. And the IPU has been working tirelessly to implement this resolution ever since. We created the Forum of Young Parliamentarians. As the global megaphone of the world's young MPs, this body serves to enhance youth participation in national parliaments and also strengthen the participation of young MPs within the IPU itself. Since its inception, the Forum has been serving as a hub for MPs from around the world to report on progress in their own countries and to coordinate action. And it's also led to changes within the IPU structures. The proportion of young MPs at our assemblies has grown significantly, and young MPs are represented in all of the IPU's governing bodies. I'm also particularly proud of the forum's work in championing gender equality, with parity being mandatory within the forum bureau. The IPU resolution also led to the IPU being the global observatory on youth in Parliament. By collecting data on ages of MPs and parliamentary actions to promote youth, we've become an international reference point on this topic and an official custodian used by the United Nations to measure progress for SDG 16. Since 2014, we've been organising yearly global conferences of young parliamentarians. We just held our 11th conference in Peru, where we focused on the role of young MPs in uniting generations for gender equality. Here we made bold calls for gender parity in parliaments, an end to violence against women, and greater cooperation with stakeholders like civil society in equality efforts. And I'd invite you all to check out our outcome document, which is now on the IPU website. Since our youth movement began, IPU has also organised an array of other activities to empower young parliamentarians, from the national to the global events. This includes skills training and capacity building on key topics, such as climate change, employment, sustaining peace, and much more. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made great strides since our resolution in 2010. But as we can see, much more work and action is needed to ensure meaningful youth participation in politics. The last 15 years have shown us the magnitude of the problem, but they have also revealed the solutions that we know can help us deliver results. Many of these have been summarised in the 6 pledges of the IPU's I Say Yes to Youth in Parliament campaign, which was launched in 2021. These actions include promoting youth quotas, and I'm pleased that these are increasingly common in parliaments, nearly doubling in number since 2014. Aligning the age of eligibility for political office with that of voting. We firmly believe that if you're old enough to vote, pay taxes or serve in the military, you cannot be too young to run for office. Supporting youth channels in Parliament, including youth caucuses and committees. Empowering young MPs by providing training and ensuring they have leadership positions in Parliament once they are elected. And finally, mentoring and supporting young aspirants hoping to get more involved in politics. And advocating for youth participation. Today, over 1,000 MPs and 155 countries, as well as 90 speakers of Parliament, have joined this campaign. And if you have not done so already, I invite you to sign up as well, and this can be done in just a couple of minutes through the IPU's website. As we can see, we know many of the solutions that can deliver transformative change for youth in politics. And we have a strong coalition of change makers who are working to this end. What we need more than ever is the political sense of urgency and determination to make this issue a priority in each of our countries. We need everyone working together across the globe, and this is why this first meeting of P20 young parliamentarians is such an important step in that journey. It provides a new launchpad to mobilise change. And I encourage all of you to seize this moment and to use this opportunity to advance the cause of youth participation even further. The IPU and the Forum of Young Parliamentarians stand ready to work with you to meet this shared objective. Let me finally thank once again South Africa and the Parliament and you, Madam Speaker, for including this as part of the agenda, and wish everybody well for the next 2 days as we seek to bring about further influence and change on behalf of young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Carden. I think I do agree with you that we have now reached a democratic emergency with the underrepresentation of young people. And this is not just because excluding us perpetuates inequality, but it's because it undermines long-term progress. The solutions that we have, the issues that we have are global in nature, and they will require all hands on deck. So I do agree with you, and I would like to join you in thanking South Africa really for starting this P20 initiative. I think it was just in the Youth Month when the House Chairperson was presiding over our sitting, our first sitting as the P20 Youth Parliament. And I can tell you now that young people are eager to lead and to be part of the change that we want to see. And with that, I would like to welcome two speakers who are going to give us the overview of the P20 Young Parliamentarians, Honorable T.S.B. Sapo, and Honorable T. Manong, who are going to give us an overview of the P20 Parliament of South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Co-Chair, Honorable Speaker, and Honorable Members. I think my task is just simple: to provide an overview of the P20 Young Parliamentary Initiative, and secondly, to offer some reasoned justification on the necessity, relevance, and importance of formalizing or institutionalizing annual P20 Young Parliamentarians meeting as integral part and additional component of the P20 inter-parliamentary mechanisms that holds greater prospects for advancement of parliamentary diplomacy. Perhaps, Honorable Chair, let me start my remarks by underscoring the importance and historic purpose and mission of this initiative. But to begin by laying a background, as honorable members will recall, that in 2023, the Federative Republic of Brazil held the rotating presidency of G20. During its G20 chairmanship, and in the context of its P20 presidency, Brazil organized three main events, which were inclusive of the first P20 meeting of women parliamentarians, the 10th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit, and lastly, the G20 Parliamentary Forum, which were dedicated on stimulating debate on the implementation of the recommendations emanating from the previous meeting that I just mentioned. Now, based on the governance principle of presidency rotation, on December 1st, 2024, South Africa assumed G20 presidency, and at its launch, the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, announced that South Africa has adopted the theme solidarity, equality, and sustainability for its G20 presidency. Honorable co-chairs, similarly in this context of South Africa's G20 presidency, the following meetings or events were planned in the run-up to the 11th P20 Speakers Summit. 1, public consultative engagements and sectoral parliamentary activities. Secondly, the high-level G20 Symposium for African continent Speaker of Parliaments in partnership with the Pan-African Parliament. The second P20 meeting of women parliamentarians, and these inaugural P20 Young Parliamentary meetings. Inspired by the Brazilian experience and consistent with the practice followed by the multilateral inter-parliamentary structures such as BRICS, South Africa then decided to introduce and host this first P20 Youth Parliamentarians meeting as part of the broader 11th P20 Speakers Summit. The aim of this Young Parliamentary Meeting is to promote young participation in democratic institutions and processes at all levels. Secondly, in amplifying young MPs' voice in shaping global policy agendas by integrating the perspective and the needs of young parliamentarians and contributing youth-focused input into outcomes documents of the P20 and the G20 Summit, and to establish a forum for young parliamentarians, fostering substantive dialogue and sharing of experience, especially on the challenges that are confronting young people. As honorable members, the P20 Young Parliamentary Meeting is not only envisioned to be the launchpad of impactful young youth parliament activism, but it is also intended to be the forum of young parliamentary diplomacy, recenter the importance of youth priorities, and elevate them to find place on top of the agenda of the global institution and interparliamentary cooperative mechanisms. That is why the following issues were then identified to be the themes or focus areas of this inaugural meeting. One, parliamentary actions to fight climate change. This segment will then talk on the current state of climate change and international response. Young MPs have a clear role in addressing climate change, from reviewing legislation budget to applying oversight tools to monitor government implementation of climate commitments. Two, youth-oriented institution reforms. This segment will reflect on how oversight legislation and budget processes can be utilized to advance the development of young people as builders of communities, citizens, and entrepreneurship. Three, to create an enabling environment for young entrepreneurs and employment. This session will reflect on which national policies has proven to be effective in promoting youth entrepreneurship and employment. It will also discuss how can Parliament support red tape reduction initiative to enable young entrepreneurs. To this end, some honorable members will then might ask themselves, why is it important to have young parliamentary meeting, given the fact that in terms of the G20 working logics, there is an already engagement group that is mainly focused or dedicated to young people, which is a Y20. I think by now, and what was raised by the Honorable Speaker, that question would have been answered. Or beyond this meeting, honorable members will then have answers. From where I am standing, Victor Hugo's a former quote, I quote, "No power on earth can stop an idea whose come has come." I think this captured this rationale behind introducing and formalizing of the P20 Young Parliamentary Meeting. This quote captures the power of ideas at the moment of transformation. It suggests that when an idea aligns with the need and sentiments of the society, it will inevitably gain momentum and lead to change. And let me then hence to add that, honorable members, this young parliamentary meeting is not only an idea whose time has come, but a viable parliamentary diplomacy instrument with a transformative potential to make a global equality, solidarity, and sustainable in the historical reality. Thank you very much.
شكرا لك سيدتي المحترمة على هذه الكلمة الهامة والفعالة. نمر مباشرة الآن إلى وأدعو السيدة تاكان مانونغ نائبة ببرلمان الشباب لمجموعة التنمية لإفريقيا الجنوبية لإلقاء كلمتها حول البرلمانيين الشباب، فلتتفضل مشكورة. عذرا أود أن أدعو السيد في آخر مداخلة السيد المحترم ريمون ماتلالا رئيس مجموعة شباب العشرين لجنوب إفريقيا لإدلاء بكلمته، فليتفضل مشكور.
Thank you, Chair, Co-Chair, Madam Speaker. I'm here today in the boundaries of Parliament, so I would say honourable members. In my normal life, I would say comrades and compatriots, dear friends and colleagues. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity, especially as Y20, to engage the P20 young parliamentarians around some of the work that we do. I would also like to express our gratitude to the South African Parliament for inviting us to this session. I also want to just acknowledge young parliamentarians that are in the room. I see some familiar faces that I worked with in my previous life as well. Right, what is, maybe briefly, just to talk about the role of Y20. So Y20 is an official engagement group of the G20, is the oldest engagement group, in fact, which was launched and established in 2010, where it held its first summit. And this year, Y20 celebrates 15 years of existence. And Y20 has produced 14 communiques. And I'll get to that when I get to my remarks. And Y20 was supposed to produce the 15th communique this year during the Y20 South Africa Presidency. Our goal is really to amplify youth voice within the G20 space. However, that has been quite a challenge. And during our presidency as South Africa, we had three fundamental high-level priorities. And two of those was to mainstream youth within the G20 framework, so that it does not just remain an engagement group which submits a communique, a symbolic communique, which ends there. So one of our goals and one of our advocacy, like radical inclusion and advocacy process, has been to ensure that we mainstream youth within all the G20 frameworks, and that includes all the 13 official engagement groups and non-official engagement groups, and of course also the ministerial working groups, and also the Sherpa track as well as the finance track. And it's quite an ambitious goal that we've set for ourselves. And the second one was to establish a permanent mechanism. I think the last honorable member spoke about it, institutionalization. As I've said, Y20 has been in existence for 15 years this year. We've produced over 400 policy recommendations through 14 communiques. None of those have seen the light of day in terms of implementation. And we said during our presidency, as South Africa, that is something that we would like to change, and we push into change. To further that, which and I understand is also a challenge for P20, is none of those have seen or expressly been included in the leaders' declarations for the last 14 years. And we also said we are tired with talk shows and symbolic communiques, and that is why Y20 concluded in August this year without a formal communique, but rather a chair's remarks or a chair's summary, which actually summarizes the importance and acknowledging the failures of the previous 14 communiques. What we've been working on is to ensure that there is an institutional mechanism. Although Y20 is an engagement group, there is no continuity. Every chairship hands over, starts from afresh. For example, when we got a handover from Brazil. It was a mouth or a conversational handover. There was no document to it. Even a simple website, you can't hand over because there is no mechanism, a foundation that carries those continuity. And that is what we said during our chairship as South Africa Y20. We do not want to be just relevant and popularist. We want to make meaningful impact. Now, what are some of the shared priorities with P20? I think one of the 5 thematic areas which Y20 focused on was inclusive economic development and employment. As we may be aware that youth unemployment is a critical issue globally, but more so depressing here in South Africa. So it was one of the 5 thematic tracks. We also looked at climate and sustainable development. We also looked at AI, digital skills, as well as education for the future of work. And we also looked at meaningful youth engagement and the reform of multilateralism. And when we say meaningful, we mean it, that young people should not be by the way. And it should not be a sideline. And that is why we're talking about mainstreaming, because what we're saying is you cannot determine the future without the voices of youth. And for them to be in that platform, they need to be in those decision-making platforms, not at summits. Yes, we attend summits, but summits have become talk shows, and we said we need to move away from talk shows, and that is why we wanted, we used precisely the word meaningful youth engagement and the reform of multilateralism. And also, we also looked at inequality. We also understand that there's immense inequalities around the world, and we're looking at also inclusive. So we know that there are challenges with respect to matters related to inclusive of outside of male and female gender disparities. So we also want to engage on those matters, have serious conversations using existing frameworks, the Pact of the Future, and so forth. So those are the 5 key thematic areas we looked at. And I was so pleased to hear also Honorable Sabo also mentioning that climate and sustainable development is one of the fundamental issues that P20 young parliamentarians are looking at. And indeed, we need to work together because as parliamentarians, you are legislators, you provide policy direction, you also provide policy framework. So in doing so, when I looked at the shared priorities is to on education and skills development, how can parliamentarians accelerate the reform for the future-proofing of education system and system alignment? And it lies with parliamentarians to ensure that those frameworks are established. And that is where we come in as youth and Y20 to request these shared priorities with parliamentarians, the issues on climate change, the issues on digital innovation, and so forth. Now, there was a call for a institutionalization of parliamentarian, young parliamentarians. It's something that we are keen to support. In fact, there is the Social Summit, which is going to be taking place here in South Africa. And Y20 is actively participating in that. And we know we've got and advocated for sufficient space there. And I would like to take this opportunity to invite young parliamentarians, not only from South Africa, but from across all the G20 member states, to attend as part of that youth delegation during the G20 Social Summit, which will be co-chaired by President Ramaphosa. And then lastly, I would also like to call for action. So, Madam Speaker and colleagues in this room, please do not take this forum as just a forum that just sit and talk and just become a talk show. Kindly follow through with some of the recommendations that comes from this forum, and also Madam Sapu, we are available and willing to work with young parliamentarians as Y20 to ensure that we support that institutionalization mechanism and mainstreaming of youth. And lastly, from South Africa, what we've decided to do is to establish the Y20 South Africa Alumni Association that will become a radical inclusive mechanism and machinery that will drive G20 and beyond activities. And we also invite young parliamentarians to work together. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, I thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll call you Honorable Matala because now you're also within the precinct of Parliament. But I do agree with you that we must institutionalize the participation of young people. But you need not worry when you call on Madam Speaker and make a call to her, because she was one of the youngest serving ministers in the first administration. At the tender age of 29. At the tender age of 29, under 30, she was serving in the first administration as a minister. As a deputy minister, my apologies. But now we are moving on to the last session. It is going to be a photo session just so that we consolidate today's events and give it a physical capture of the events that took place today. If we could all just join me this side, it will be here. I think it will be great just behind the branding, and if you could, we could just extend the seats and you could stand behind the speaker and the chairs. Thank you.
Members, I would like to apologize on behalf of who had a delayed flight. Members,
young people to fast track the employment possibilities and self-employment through entrepreneurship for young people to address the challenge of unemployment in our country.
Thank you so much for joining us at Parliament TV, Speaker.
Thank you.
And of course, that was the Speaker of the National Assembly of South Africa, Ms. Thoko Didiza, sharing her insights, especially with regards to youth parliamentarians and the issues and challenges that they face throughout each of all the countries, the G20 countries that are here. And of course, we're still building up to the ultimate P20 Speakers Summit that is scheduled to begin on the 1st towards the 3rd of October. Keep on watching Parliament TV.
We're participating in. The debate continues. We need to reaffirm that we are a generation unwillingly to inherit a broken system. The call for meaningful youth participation, institutional reforms, and decisive climate action has to be very clear, and it's up to this meeting to ensure that we are very clear as young people from across the globe on those various issues. Our task is to ensure that these words do not remain aspirations, but they need to become commitments, which will ensure that we oversee and ensure that they are implemented. And they need to shape real policies in our parliaments and in our global arena. So as representatives of different legislatures and parliaments, it's our responsibility to ensure that our words and our meeting becomes real policies which we will be implemented across. Today we affirm that solidarity is the antidote to division built on trust and cooperation across nations. And, equality, we need to remind ourselves that equality is not an act of charity, but it's an act of justice. So we need to ensure that no young person is denied opportunity by circumstance of birth. Even with what was being said, it was recognized that sustainability is not a distant aspiration, but an urgent foundation of our survival and our prosperity going forward. Like I quoted in the beginning when we started our session, President Mandela's timeless words guide us still, that sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. So it's up to us to ensure that we are the great generation, which will ensure that the generations to come are secured. Honorable members, greatness, we speak about greatness all the time, but it's not beyond us. It's not impossible. It is within us. And it's just up to us to just be truthful in our approach going forward. And we need to dare to act with courage and conviction. On behalf of South Africa, I thank you all for your passion, your vision, and determination to all our countries that presented to us this morning. Let us leave this room not only as participants in dialogue, but as custodians of change, committed to building a world that is united in solidarity and that is equal in opportunity, and ensuring that sustainability is a promise. The world is watching. G20 is coming up, and even us as young parliamentarians, we need to ensure that we rise together, and ensure that transformation is not just a wish and just words that we utter every day, but something that is going to happen now and not later. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. With that being said, I'm just going to give us literally a 3-minute transition for our next session, and just to ensure that we can move on to the next session of parliamentary action to fight climate change. And we will then have that session, and then discussions will then ensue after that. Thank you very much. I call upon my colleague, Honorable Nodada, who is going to be chairing this session. Thank you.
Right. Good morning, honorable members, and good morning to everybody who is in the House. We are now going to move on to the session around parliamentary action to fight climate change. And this particular session will obviously have some time for us to have discussion points. For those of you that don't know me or came in late, my name is Baxolile Nodada. I'm a member of Parliament in the National Assembly. And I just wanted to talk to you a bit about this particular session, because it involves not only us as young parliamentarians discussing an issue that affects us now, but it also affects future generations. So it's important for us, when we have the discussion and put solutions on the table, know that it's not just only about us, but for future generations. Climate change is an existential crisis or threat that demands global solidarity and cooperation. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC's 2018 Special Report on Global Warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius, human-induced warming had already reached approximately about 1.0 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels by 2017. At the current rate of around 0.2 degrees per decade, the world is projected to cross the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold around 2030 to 2040. Within this global context, Sub-Saharan Africa has experienced warming of approximately 0.86 degrees Celsius above its 1991 to 2020 baseline, intensifying climate impacts such as more frequent and severe floods, droughts, and heat waves. To keep global warming within 1.5 degrees Celsius, the IPCC indicates that global emissions need to decline by roughly 40 to 45% from 2010 levels by 2030, reaching net zero around mid-century. This implies annual reduction rates of about 7.7 to 8% each year until 2030. South Africa's 2025 G20 presidency, under the theme of solidarity, equality, and sustainability, officially framed our global cooperation efforts, emphasizing a just, inclusive, and sustainable transition. In parallel, at the intergovernmental level, the P20 Parliamentary Platform, parliamentary group of G20 countries plus invited partners, provides a space for legislatures to collaborate on aligning national laws and oversight mechanisms to meet these ambitious climate change targets. In the African climate story, South Africa stands at a pivotal crossroads. Though its historical greenhouse gas emissions are modest, the impacts of climate change, droughts, heat waves, and floods are becoming more frequent and severe. Parliament has stepped into this narrative, evolving from policy-shaping body into a central actor in national climate governance. South Africa's 2025 G20 presidency, guided by the theme of solidarity, equality, and sustainability, presents a pivotal opportunity to harmonize climate policy, finance, and parliamentary oversight in pursuit of an equitable transition. This theme reflects the country's commitment to fostering cooperation and inclusive progress while addressing systemic inequalities exacerbated by the climate crisis. Parliament is central to realizing this vision, and so are other parliaments around the world. Legislators must at this time start championing the adaptation plan by enforcing mandates across the different municipalities, provinces, as required by the Climate Change Act. Mainstream climate finance in the national budget cycle and promote innovative grant-based instruments such as green bonds and concessional funds. Strengthen climate data systems, ensuring robust information sharing across the DFFE, DMRE, National Treasury, and local governments. Elevate climate literacy through constituency-level campaigns, dialogue, and accessible educational material. Enhance citizen participation via public hearings, service delivery forums, and platforms that translate community into accountable policy making. In so doing, parliaments around the world, particularly us implementing in South Africa, will not only improve mitigation and adaptation outcomes, but also ensure the communities across the country and the world, especially those most vulnerable, are protected, empowered, and included in the climate agenda. Let's all remember, a country that does not invest in its youth has no future. Thank you so much. I would now like to call upon the resource person, which is Ms. Vonana Rkhodzo, Chair of the W20 Climate Justice, Environment and Food Security Task Team. I don't know if that person is already here. who is going to be presenting to us on the current state of climate change and international response. We're supposed to have a rapporteur from Japan. I don't know if that person is already here. So those are the people that are supposed to come and present to us now, and then thereafter we'll then have a discussion on that. All right. I see that those particular people have not arrived yet. What I'll then do in the meantime, after having presented that, is to open up to the floor to have a discussion around climate change and some of our country's perspectives on climate change. I know there are also representatives from the different legislatures here that this obviously does affect directly. So any of our participants today that would like to make some statements around climate change or make a contribution on climate change, please do indicate just by a show of hands. Cool. Turkey? Yes.
Dear colleagues, firstly, we changed the pronunciation. It's Turkey right now. It's not Turkey anymore. Dear colleagues, we stand today at a critical juncture for humanity. Climate change, wars, and inequality converge into a single test for our generation. The rising global temperatures, floods, droughts, and wildfires are already destabilizing communities. At the same time, violent conflicts reveal how fragile peace can be. These crises are not separate. They reinforce each other. As young parliamentarians, we are not just observers, we are responsible actors. Our duty is to advance ambitious laws that secure sustainable futures, ensure transparent governance, and strengthen multilateralism. The Paris Agreement is our roadmap, but it will remain ineffective unless backed by political courage and parliamentary oversight. Turkey, situated in the Mediterranean basin, faces acute climate threats. This is why we embraced the green transition vision and committed to the 2053 net zero emission target. Our Grand National Assembly adopted the first standalone climate law, updating our climate governance framework. Our nationally determined contribution is now more ambitious, showing that Turkey is ready to do its part. Moreover, our candidacy for COP31 reflects Turkey's will to host inclusive dialogue for collective action. But climate change cannot be separated from broader global challenges. Peace and sustainability are interdependent. The destruction in Gaza reminds us, without justice, peace cannot last, and without peace, sustainability cannot exist. As young leaders, we must not only raise our voices, but also propose pathways for a fair and lasting solution. Therefore, I call upon all of us to combine words with action. First, to support immediate humanitarian corridors in Gaza to protect innocent lives. Second, to strengthen parliamentary diplomacy for ceasefire and peace talks. And third, to reaffirm that justice and sustainability for a fair and lasting solution. No. This is not only a matter of solidarity, but of responsibility. While we debate the long-term challenges of our world, in Gaza, an urgent humanitarian crisis is unfolding. It is our responsibility not only to debate the future, but to respond to the present, to act where lives are being lost as we speak. The world doesn't need more spectators in Gaza. It needs problem solvers, bridge builders, and courageous voices. Dear colleagues, the future depends on the decisions we make today. Let us commit to action that transcends borders and differences. Together, we can shape a world where sustainability, peace, and justice reinforce one another. Today, I invite you to take action. Let this gathering not be just another discussion, but the starting point for solutions that will serve the good of all humanity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is it Tukia? Nice. Okay. Thank you so much for that. And I think we all agree that as much as we're making statements here today, it's also an opportunity for us to take back some of the suggestions that we have to influence legislation and oversight in our different parliaments across the world. So I'm going to ask the next country that would like to make a statement around climate change. If Algeria is ready, they can come through. Over to you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Peace upon you all. Hello, everyone. I repeat my thanks to the country of South Africa for this event and for this summit. I thank all my colleagues from every country, especially for the P20. In fact, Algeria focus on all the global changes because of the geographical location by the Mediterranean Sea, as it is one of the 24 hot points, which affected by the global heating, and all this environmental threatening of floods, dehydration, and coastal problems. We have repeated floods in many countries 14 times in the country since 1970, and around 19 hectares of the Algerian land, as we lose around 400 hectares from our land because of this climate change. As we have less rain around 20% before the comparing to the previous, which leads to having less crops and agriculture production. And expertise, they are expecting by 2040, and that percentage will duplicate. Algeria is affected badly by the global changing, and the Algerian people will suffer lots of social groups. They have lots of problems in certain parts of Algeria. They have lots of problems related to the nature and the climate. والجزائر تقوم, and Algeria is doing its best. Since 2023, as they put a fund in $25 million to fix all the problems related to the climate changing. وفي and in Paris summit they created a program. This program is to find all the strategies which indicate all the climate problems Algeria is facing, and also using the German technology in reducing all the climate changing problems and threatening and disasters in Algeria. In many fields like agriculture, water, industry, forest, and taking all the precautions to deal with all the climate changes in the future. And Algeria made lots of programs which is for all the areas which is more affected with this climate problems. This is with the support and the help of the German cooperation, which measured the percentage of the rain as the reduce of rain, which is reducing recently, is going to affect all the food resources. And in this Paris agreement, Algeria had lots of policies Algeria made lots of policies which just shows the plan which is going to be till 2030. And our ambition is to raise the percentage till 22% by using all the technology ways and to have renewable energy resources and giving the priority to all. We are going to re-establish the green dam at the year of 2023, and to increase the green coverage from 3 million hectares to plus 4 million hectares in the coming years. And also by signing the document ولقد حصلت and Algeria have received lots of funds for all the efforts they did, and also we are working on all the process to work on the water problem, and we have 6 water stations to produce drinking water, to produce 60% of the drinking water in Algeria.
It is on the way to reach the 50%. And Algeria strategy to transform from the projects from the from 2030, like projects like Tafuka 1 to the extent 4 gigawatt, and to update to include that, and then the project, the 13.5 terawatt from sun power, that will give the Algeria the first and advanced position, and to look for environment and environmental change and present for the Algerian, the President Ibrahim Douali, the environment. September 2020, it includes 22 members from the Parliament of Algeria, 3 ex-parliamentarians who are like who are 2 women from the parliamentarian. The object and the goal of this committee to fix the environmental change. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Algeria, for such a comprehensive input. Honorable members, I just want to say that we are obviously ahead of time if you look at our program. And the person who's supposed to come and present to us is going to come at 2:30 with the assigned repertoire. But what I thought was important was for us to be able to make the statements that we need to make and use that opportunity when they do make a presentation to actually have a discussion, having heard each other's views, and maybe have conversations with those with the time that will take just before lunch. Would then the House be fine if we then continue with other countries' statements, or would you suggest that we wait for 2:30 and have an early break before the lunch period? Proceed, man. Cool. Can we call upon Russia to make a statement? Fine. Italy? Is Italy also fine? It looks like they're fine. Cool. I would suggest that we do take so that we don't run too fast ahead of our own program, because I know some countries were well within the city, still traveling to Hermanus. So we might have a bigger delegation just after lunch. So I would suggest that we do take a break now and reconvene after lunch. So we obviously have an early break to that. So thank you so much again.
Pan-African Parliament. We started on Friday, where we spoke about women's issues, the youth, and today we're focusing on specific themes linked to the P20, which will be held later in the year in the Western Cape. So today was an introductory session, and some of the themes we've already discussed: trade and agriculture, which I think is very critical, and one could see it in all the interventions that members had made, giving valuable inputs from the African perspective in terms of trade and agriculture. When we get together at these symposia and at the different congresses, conferences, we talk, but we seldom put it into action. And one of the ways as parliamentarians is that we can make sure that it does find its voice in legislation. So that will be one of the themes also for the P20, is let's look at our legislation so that we can implement all the discussions held on the international stage. And I think important here is the fact that the P20 will be held, and the G20, for the first time on the African continent. So this is our time, and I really hope that the South African government and the South African Parliament, which I do have a role in, that we will take the lead and make sure that whatever is discussed at the P20 and even at the Pan-African Parliament, that we do draft legislation and have oversight over the government to make sure that these interests, concerns of our citizens of this continent are actually reflected in what we do as politicians.
Still watching the live broadcast of Parliament TV on DSTV channel 408. Those were some of the insights from the P20 meeting of young parliamentarians. A great insights to listen to there. But we'll now cross over to the P20 women parliamentarians. But before that, Tsepo, can you share some of your experiences from that session?
Of course, some of the experiences is the inclusivity of young people in ensuring that they're driving the decisions that are made on such large global stages. We know that unemployment is an issue throughout a lot of countries. And of course, this is an opportunity for young parliamentarians to come forward and cascade those issues, cascade those challenges, and ensure that they learn from other countries that have grappled with this issue and have come over it, actually, to Mikosi.
Thank you for summing up that well, Tsepo. Now, viewers, will take you to the P20 meeting of women parliamentarians.
We know that challenges remain. Women are still underrepresented in senior decision-making positions, especially when it comes to gender-based violence. We had a very powerful presentation on that earlier on, and also the fact that the gender pay gap still persists. We heard earlier on that there's a 20% difference in that pay gap. We also know if that pay gap was narrowed, as the World Bank has said, that the GDP of each country would rise by 20%, so it feels like an absolute no-brainer. These realities remind us that equality is not a destination, but a continuous journey, one that demands vigilance, innovation, and solidarity. Colleagues, the challenges we face, whether it's climate change, inequality, economic uncertainty, they're just interconnected. So too must be our response. Parliamentary diplomacy gives us a unique tool, the ability to turn dialogue into law and law into lasting change. Each of us, individually, carries the hopes of millions of women and girls who look to their parliamentarians for justice, opportunity and dignity. Let us not disappoint them. Together we can ensure that P20 is not just a platform for discussion, but a catalyst for transformation. Thank you, and I wish us all a productive and inspiring meeting ahead. Because the P20 is so important to us in the UK, especially this summit over the next 2 days, I am joined by my co-Deputy Speaker of the House of Lords. Please give a warm welcome to Baroness. Baroness, I will let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Deborah Bull, Baroness Bull. I am indeed a Deputy Speaker in the House of Lords. and it is a great privilege to represent the United Kingdom's second chamber here at this P20 in South Africa. I should say that although we are called the House of Lords, when the role of Lord Speaker was created following an adjustment of the systems some years back, the first ever Lord Speaker was indeed a woman. I would like to extend and repeat the grateful thanks to our hosts for their generous hospitality and indeed for placing such vital themes as global solidarity, equality and sustainability at the heart of their leadership of the G20. All parliamentarians share a responsibility to promote meaningful and respectful dialogue and to ensure that voices from all different communities, particularly the disadvantaged, the historically excluded, and the vulnerable, are heard. But we, as women parliamentarians, we have an additional responsibility. It's our role to ensure that women's voices are raised up, that women's perspectives, needs, and insights are taken into account when creating policy. It's our role to encourage and perhaps educate our male colleagues to do the same. And it's our role to hold governments to account when they fall short of those ideals. Of course, we must also acknowledge the achievements when credits are due. And for myself, in the UK, I think of the work that our government is doing with international finance institutions, the UN, the World Bank, the IMF, to ensure that gender is factored into multilateral investment and financing. I think of the UK's commitment to universal sexual and reproductive health rights, to universal quality education, not least through our investment and support in the International Finance Facility for Education. And as a woman, I'm especially proud that the UK remains committed to standing up and speaking up for women and girls in all their diversity, including LGBT+ women and girls that have disabilities. But despite these achievements, we must all admit there is more that we can do, both at home and in partnership with our friends across the world. We can do more working together to advance equitable inclusion. And forums like this one play such an important role in building understanding and relationship between different nations, allowing us to share our knowledge and our experiences and to strengthen our collective response to global challenges, which, as we know, do not respect national borders but impact across the world. So though we represent different parliamentary systems, different beliefs, and different philosophies, there are many things that unite us. And front and center of that is the shared truth that we are all women. We share a common aim, that our political systems and structures create spaces for the voices, perspectives, and participation of all women. We are one global community, and we have much to learn from each other. And already this morning, I have learned from the opening speakers today. From the Honourable Dr. Lou Triet, we heard solidarity is not a slogan, solidarity is a mandate. And from the Honourable Mrs. Dunjwa, who reminded us of the women of 1956 on whose shoulders we stand today. Solidarity is not a slogan. Solidarity is a strategy for change. When women work together, when we recognise ourselves in each other, miraculous, fantastic achievements can be made. And so I say to our South African hosts, your philosophy of Ubuntu has special residence here today. I am because we are. So thank you for this opportunity to remember and reflect on this important truth. I know that I will go home enriched by new perspectives, by new stories, improved by your stories, and better able to play my part in my country's efforts to drive change and create a world that is fully inclusive, a world that is therefore better able to adapt and thrive to the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead. Thank you.
Merci au Royaume-Uni. A second round of applause for them. We thank you all for your statement. I'm now calling my co-chair to give the final remarks.
Thank you, Honorable Chair Kabala. I'll just do a few remarks, closing remarks. Indeed, as women parliamentarians, we play a vital role as agents of change in society. We should use our legislative influence to dismantle systemic barriers and promote gender-responsive policies across initiatives focused on climate justice, economic empowerment, and peace. Our collective efforts and increasing representation are crucial for advancing the Sustainable Development Goals and creating a more equitable, inclusive, and sustainable world for all. With those few remarks, honorable members and colleagues, we would like to thank all of you for your remarks that you've made and your valuable inputs. Myself and the co-chair, we are now done with our session. We're looking forward in your deliberations as we will proceed with the program for the next sessions. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the time now is 12:21. We are done, and we were supposed to be done by 13:30. I think we can move to another session. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Honourable members, I think this is just an example of the efficiency of women, that we run through things. So I just want to make sure that our chairpersons are available. I think it is Honourable Bosov from the South African National Council of Provinces and Mozambique. Is it Mozambique? Yes, is our representative from Mozambique here? I was slightly worried about that because they have been scheduled for 14:30. So I think as a reward for your wonderful contributions and efficiency, you will have a longer lunch and enjoy the wonderful environment here. We will then convene again at 14:30. Thank you so much.
focused on youth economic participation and employment, providing a platform for young people to influence national and global agendas. The Honourable Speaker of the National Assembly, Toko Didiza, officially opened the event with a call to action for meaningful and sustained youth engagement.
Today, I also want to recognize yourselves as young people of South Africa from different formations. Some of you are in political parties, some of you are in civil society, some of you are in the academy and the private sectors. So all of you are recognized, but those of you who are in our houses today, I'll give you an honor of calling you honorable members. And I hope that the members of our parties who are part of the youth caucus, even though not formalized, which I want to formalize, because we do have a women's caucus and we do need to have a multi-party youth parliamentary caucus that would have a designated time to meet in order to be able to address youth concerns in our legislation as well as in our various policies. Order. Honorable members, distinguished guests, welcome to this august house, which is an institution that crafts laws that govern our lives and the guardian that oversee executive action and hold our executive to account. This house brings to life concerns of our electorate and becomes a platform for debate in which we ensure that our society's concerns are addressed. It is in this house where our public representatives, whom we elect, ensure that the interests of all South Africans in their diversity are deliberated upon. Today, as Parliament, we have created a platform where the young peoples of our country, together with their public representatives who are part and parcel of you, come together to commemorate and honor the role that young people played in the liberation of our country. We honor their bravery. We honor their selflessness, their resilience and commitment in ending a brutal system that dehumanized a section of our society and took away the dignity of a majority of our people and delayed progress as a nation. We do so because memory is important, not only to remember, but to actually etch in our memory that this freedom did not come for free. We remember these heroes and heroines because they laid their lives in order for us who are seated here today and outside are free and have a franchise. We may not yet be economically free as we would have wanted, but I think the first step of ensuring that we can choose a people who will represent us, we can choose a government that we want, that we can stand here and deliberate about their concerns, knowing that there is no hindrance that stands before us. We remember them and their deeds in order to underscore the responsibility that who, the living, still have to fulfill in order to ensure that their fight was not in vain. Each day we remember the generation before them and after. We remember the young people who worked towards bringing the concerns of their communities to Kliptown, where the Freedom Charter was adopted 70 years ago. We remember the young people of the 40s who actually brought impetus in how our democracy can actually be brought to bear speedily. We remember the young people who actually started the End Conscription campaign to start to challenge the powers that be at the time, that why should we die in the foreign lands when we can actually sit together as South Africans and solve our problem. Each day, we remember those young people who formed part of the first democratic parliament and legislatures that laid the foundation of the institution that we're in today. Today, we also remember the consciousness that young people who led the Fees Must Fall brought in ensuring that our society and government expand the access to education and ensure that the doors of learning indeed are opened. Today, we remain conscious that it is the generation of young people that are here in this house and others who are confronted with many challenges, particularly the challenge of unemployment in our country despite completing their studies. It is for this reason that our theme today focuses on economic participation and employment. I sometimes say others may think it was more of a challenge to bring down apartheid and colonialism. But I want to add, it is more of a challenge to rebuild. It is more of a challenge to integrate and build a society that does not look at each one of us from the prism of race, from the prism of gender, but building a non-racial, non-sexist society. It is this challenge, and particularly yourself seated here and in our legislatures, who actually bring a bridge that must now ensure that we as a people become part of a global community. It is you who face a new challenge where we must rethink the world of work. As we celebrate the importance of technology in advancing our development, it also raises particular fear about reimagining what the world of work will be. So you must never underestimate the important role that we have to play to build this new society. You must never underestimate the responsibility you carry that will make the future generation look at what you have done to build a platform for them to survive. Co-chairperson, honorable members, as we build a new society that is founded on democratic values and respect for human rights for all, we're conscious that many challenges still remain despite the progress that have been made, some of which you yourselves have been a part of. The challenge of unemployment, and in particular youth unemployment, remains a sore point in the attainment of our democratic dividend. During your deliberations today, and I would say further, you need to reflect on ways in which our country can grow our economy that allows for participation for all South Africans. As much as we are a part of the global community and therefore affected by geopolitical shifts, it is important that we find solutions that address our immediate challenges as a country in order to give hope to those young people who feel in the margins of our society. Economic participation, in my view, cannot be realized unless we create an enabling environment that is conducive for many to participate. We need to look at how our corporate citizens of this country, the private sector, support the transformation agenda.
Youth champions from all sectors came out boldly, putting real issues on the table, confronting youth unemployment head-on, highlighting the growing skills gap, and warning that without urgent action, AI and digital innovation could leave too many young people behind.
In terms of learners with learning barriers, learners with learning barriers, there are not many practical courses for them, and that's what's causing the high unemployment rate, because learners that have barriers drop out of school, become part of the statistics of learners who are unemployed, not in school, not in training, not doing anything. We are neglecting those learners that have barriers. And because we are neglecting those learners that have barriers, that's what's causing most of them to go into drugs and crime and other negative aspects within society. So we don't have that. We need to have more practical courses that will cater for learners that have learning barriers. Another recommendation that I have is that we are having a very few number of people that are educational psychologists, and we do need more educational psychologists. We've got a very low number of them. So because we've got an extremely low number of educational psychologists within the country, we don't have access to them in terms of assessing learners that are having these learning barriers, because if these learners are not being assessed, there are no interventions in place, and what happens to them, they just get lost in the system.
Our message to you today is simple, but it is not soft. Youth with disabilities are no longer asking to be included. We are already leading. The question is whether you are prepared to follow through. The Eastern Cape, with its deep-rooted liberation history, remains among the provinces with the highest disability prevalence and some of the lowest indicators in youth employment, education, and assistive access. In my province, less than 10% of youth with disabilities access sustainable public employment or bursary-linked skills development. Only 3 out of 43 special schools were refurbished in the last infrastructure cycle. Youth in residential care homes still wait years for mobility devices, basic communication aids, or access to mental health care. Unemployment among youth with disabilities hovers above 64%. It is a silent crisis. But we also carry powerful hope. Our communities, activists, caregivers, DPOs like Disabled People South Africa have filled the gap where government has struggled. These organizations are not just stakeholders, they are system builders. We are a province of resilience, but we must ask, for how long must resilience be the substitute for rights? We do acknowledge the establishment of the disability rights machinery in some provincial departments. We also acknowledge the provincial work stream for disability mainstreaming launched through the Office of the Premier. And most importantly, we also acknowledge the Office of the Premier's 2025-2026 APP, which now starts to echo a recognition of disability as a developmental priority. But good policies without budgets are only declarations. Intent is not implementation, and inclusion without power is performance. Today, I bring you 3 proposals of many that we've tabled to Parliament that we believe will move us from symbolism to systemic change. The first proposal is disability implementation hubs. We propose the establishment of disability implementation hubs, eLusikisiki, eGqonqa, eZwelisha, as interdepartmental public-private spaces to co-design inclusive employment, youth entrepreneurship, and access to adaptive technologies. Let these hubs be the test beds for scaling to all provinces. Our second proposal is a youth disability inclusion scorecard, where we are requesting that a youth disability inclusion scorecard be embedded across the NYDA, CETAs, NASFAS, and the Extended Public Works Program, with DPOs as co-auditors. We would like to track spend, reach, and outcomes, not just as activities. What gets measured gets done. Our third proposal is the institutional representation at all levels. It is time for youth with disabilities to have a seat in working groups, intergovernmental forums, and parliamentary advisory desks, from district DDM forums to the Office of the Speaker and the Office of the NCOP Chairperson. This institutional representation is not about tokenism. It is about supply-side legitimacy. South Africa's G20 presidency is not just a geopolitical event. It is an opportunity to demonstrate to the world that disability inclusion is not a side issue. It is a structural question of development, justice, and innovation. In 2023, Italy earmarked over 160 million euros for inclusive labor transition. Japan formalized its Disability Future Design Innovation Strategy. India hosted the first G20 event on assistive technology. The G20 is moving, and so must we. South Africa has a chance to become the moral center of the Global South on disability inclusion, but only if we stop managing disability and start governing for it. Honorable members, youth with disabilities are not passive recipients of pity or policy. We are co-creators of the democracy our Constitution promised. We do not want charity, we want consequence. We do not want mentions in minutes, we want mandates. So today, on this floor, I respectfully but firmly ask, will Parliament institutionalize annual disability-focused hearings? Will DPOs be treated as system actors, not spectators? Will we finally be counted not just in statistics, but in strategy? Let history remember that we did not merely commemorate disability, but we co-constructed a country that works for all. Let the world look to South Africa's G20 moment and say, this is where the voice of global disabled youth was not just heard, but answered. We do not ask for power because we already have it. We simply ask you to recognize it and to act accordingly. Thank you very much.
Fellow delegates and fellow South Africans, it is not just the future that belongs to the youth, but it is the present. At the moment, people under the age of 35 make up over 50% of South Africa's working population. Yet they, or rather we, face a multitude of challenges which we have unpacked in detail today. As Rise Mzansi, we know that the youth do not just want handouts. We know the youth wants two things. First, to be at the table when key decisions are made in this country, especially where those budget, law, and policy decisions impact on the future of this country. The youth should not just be consulted or asked for their input as a formality. Our young people are smart, many already experts in their field of study. Our young people are entrepreneurial, many already starting and building businesses that solve problems on the ground. Our young people have lived experiences that speak to the very heart of the challenges and difficulties that we've unpacked today. They have the solutions. And yet, fellow delegates, on forums such as this, I must also note that all relevant stakeholders should be present. The presence of the Honourable Minister of Women, Youth and Disabilities is very welcome. However, given the cross-cutting nature of the issues and challenges facing the youth, the lack of representation from other departments such as basic and higher education, health and social development raises the question of whether this gathering will have real and practical impact. Secondly, the youth wants the opportunity to get our hands dirty. The youth do not need anyone to pave the way for them. We can build the road ourselves. We simply need the tools and opportunities to do so. We need skills training that aligns with our capabilities and the needs of our country. We need a focus on mother tongue education and digital skills. We need real and sustainable job opportunities. We need key barriers of entry, especially for women and single mothers, to be removed through the provision of community healthcare and childcare services. Beyond that, the youth is also ready to make new jobs for others. The entrepreneurial spirit, business acumen, and innovation is already there. They simply need to be given a real chance. Let us ensure that the youth are a true part of decision-making in this country, not merely a fringe group to consult. Let us ensure that the youth has the tool and opportunities to build our own roads in South Africa. And I can assure you, if and when we can guarantee these two things, South Africa would not just survive and grow, it would certainly flourish. Thank you.
Key stakeholders, including Statistics South Africa, provided crucial insights into youth unemployment, poverty, and exclusion. Young members of parliament representing different political parties and provinces chaired interactive sessions on economic participation, youth unemployment, and global geopolitics. Voices from the SADC Parliamentary Forum highlighted the importance of regional youth cooperation within the broader African agenda.
It is very urgent that we involve youth in global decision-making processes in order to it is not, we cannot overstate it enough that youth need to be involved in global decision-making processes. With more than half the global population under the age of 30, young people constitute a demographic majority and a reservoir of untapped innovation, energy, and perspective. However, as the statistics have shown, we still have a very limited participation of youth engagement, and we require systemic mechanisms that empower young people as equal stakeholders in governance and policy development. So earlier this year, in my capacity as a rapporteur for the SADC Youth Parliament, disability rights,